Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather on the 6th day of February, 2020. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic, and the yellow areas here signify a winter weather advisory that's out for tonight here from the Fairbanks area. There in the Tanana Valley on up across the White Mountains into the Yukon Flats, Eastern Brooks Range, Eastern North Slope areas. And that's could see another 1 inch or so of snow tonight. And that'd give a total of anywhere from 2 to 4 inches at the most in some areas there. Other areas won't see nearly that much, but that's out until, well, through most of tonight. Now up here on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, Kaktovik, Barter Island, that's a wind chill advisory for tonight for wind chills to 55 degrees below zero. And out here to the west, wind chill advisories going on as well. Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, on down to Kivalina into Buckland, seeing wind chill 54 degrees below zero at mid-afternoon today with north winds there. And that extends down across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas and the lower Yukon River Valley here on out to Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island. All wind chill advisories through tonight. Wind chills running 45 to 55 degrees below zero. And moving on to satellite imagery system here coming up, bringing some gusty winds, nothing too serious. Some light precipitation as well into the eastern Aleutians, actually pulling out there this afternoon. Just isolated showers going on now, mostly Ahkun Island and possibly Dutch Harbor on Alaska Island there, and some rain or snow depending on your elevation here over the Alaska Peninsula. Not much really reaching Kodiak Island yet, and some moisture and clouds pushing up across Bristol Bay into the southwest interior there, and Pribilof Island, some of this moisture backing around and interacting with the cold northeast winds, cold air there, and they've got moderate to heavy snow with winds gusting 40 miles an hour, temperatures down in the mid-20s, both at St. Paul and St. George Island today. Visibility this afternoon also down to, in some cases, a quarter mile in moderate to heavy snow there along with the winds. Otherwise, just catching the edge of that system there. Winds gusty with temperatures far below zero, St. Lawrence Island, seeing gusts 25, 35 miles an hour there. And also along the southwest coast, pretty windy conditions as well. Back out to the west, you see the next front just spreading some clouds right up along the western central Aleutians there. Precipitation staying back to the southwest. Cold upper level low here, producing very cold temperatures in the mid-minus 40s. This afternoon here on the western north slope on out to the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, a trough coming over the top of a upper level ridge here, dropping down, catching the eastern Beaufort Sea coast there with some light snow and fog and clouds, and that kept temperatures warmed them into the mid-minus 20s this afternoon, as opposed to the colder stuff back out to the west. And rolling this through once again, take a look at the southeast coast, moisture shifting off there, showers diminishing, clearing increasing there along the southern areas, and showers also on the decrease up north. Nothing really heavy today, although Yakutat picked up about 1/4 of an inch of rain, Sitka about 1/3 of an inch here, but that's all on the decrease here as that system begins to move off to the east. And on the chart today, along this actually an Arctic boundary here, got areas of snow, light snow and snow showers that extends all the way up to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast there across the eastern interior. Very light amounts though, but it does separate the milder air here to the east from the much colder air back out to the west. and that pushing right on down into the Pribilof Islands there as this system pulls up to the northeast, and that bringing the moisture into the Alaska Peninsula here again, depending on the time of day and elevation, whether it was in the form of rain or snow, but definitely on the north and northwest side of the low center, that's in the form of snow. Temperatures dropping on those northeast winds there, pulling that cold air southward. Not too bad here. It looks like a mostly sunny day there over the eastern Aleutians, back to roughly, including Atka, just starting to pick the cirrus up with that next front. And we'll see for tonight, this low really weakens as it moves across the Alaska Peninsula, but that'll still push some moisture up to Kodiak Island, but winds aren't going to be much of a factor with it at all. See a little bit of an increase, but nothing serious. Mixed rain and snow along the coast, and probably nothing in Cook Inlet, especially, probably nothing into the Cook Inlet and Matanuska Valley. Over toward the Alaska Range, they'll get some upsloping conditions, better chance of some light snow there. On into the Kuskokwim Valley, and then along this boundary here, just light flurries or light snow showers with this feature. And the eastern Arctic coast, you'll end the light snow there as that system pulls off to the east. Clear and cold again, temperatures 45 to 55 below with wind chill advisories over much of the air. Well, anywhere that has 15 miles an hour or more will be under in the effect of a wind chill advisory. Still pretty breezy here along the Yukon Delta, but actually the gradient starting to slacken off, so winds will be actually diminishing later on tonight, and rain and snow with that frontal boundary there, weakening as it pushes into the Aleutians. And for tomorrow, look for a partly to mostly sunny kind of day there for the southeast coast as that system pulls off to the south and this trough doesn't quite make it in. And Yakutat, though, will be in the chance of light rain or mixed precipitation for the North Gulf Coast. That low tracks up and weakens considerably up over the central Tanana Valley areas. So mostly cloudy, areas of light snow, snow showers, nothing really too significant. Clearing out, high pressure, Arctic high pressure ridging along the North Slope Brooks Range. So keeping it cold there. Cold again back into the Seward Peninsula, but winds lighter now, still pretty breezy along the Yukon Delta and out to the coast. They increase, and over the northern Bering Sea, pretty brisk. Stronger system pushes northeastward there, bringing gales and then probably storm force winds into the Alaska Peninsula here in the marine areas there, and very windy for the Pribilofs. Northeast winds probably like today, and that cold air continue to pick up moisture, and you'll get snow squalls out in that area. Much weaker pattern out to the west there along that frontal boundary, but still some pretty good easterly winds there for the western central Aleutians. You're kind of right on the edge to the south, lighter winds. Otherwise, taking a look at the first day of the weekend, that system drives right up into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area. Pretty good southerly winds, strong southerly winds could result in blowing snow, at least initially, until the warmer air arrives with it. That'll be down here along the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, rain North Gulf Coast, rain southern Kenai Peninsula, a mixture up to the north there, but not getting too far north on the precipitation, definitely getting cut off along the Alaska Range. So Tanana Valley mostly dry, maybe some clearing, some more snow with the trough up over the Kobuk Valley, Seward Peninsula. And as this frontal boundary moves right into the panhandle, look for rain, mostly, or trending toward rain, mixture conditions up to the northeast. Low temperatures for tonight down that way, some areas staying above, well, 30 to 35, and then looks like Yakutat falling to near 30, lower 30s North Gulf Coast. Lows in the 20s here, south central Alaska, even the Cobb River Basin, and then either side of zero for the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country. You can see a sharp contrast here into the lower minus 40s. That's at Ambler and Galena at 42 below. And you can see minus 17 for Makoriak. Pribilofs dropped to 16, but mid-30s for the central Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow, mid to upper 20s, or for the Susitna Valley to mid-30s out along the North Gulf Coast, 35 to 40 for the Panhandle. 10 to 15 eastern Tanana Valley to near 20 in Eagle, but much colder, highs in the minus 20s there, mid-minus 20s for the Seward Peninsula. And some areas not rising above, again, minus 40 for the North Slope. Look for a high staying under 20 for the Pribilofs, and mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians, followed by lows on Saturday morning. Still cold out here to the west and north, milder to the east there, staying in the 20s, mid 30s for Kodiak, and the southeast coast not looking bad. Lows 25 to 35, covers it pretty well. 32, say, at Cordova. Teens for the Copper River Basin, near zero there at Fairbanks, and then again down to 40, 45 below, in some cases even down toward 50 below for the North Slope and the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Mid-teens for the Pribilofs and mid-30s for the Alaska Peninsula will rise to nearer into the lower 40s. That next storm, as that storm pulls northward, pulls the warmer air in. So 30, mid to upper 30s south central Alaska with warm southerly winds. Some areas like Palmer could even reach 43 degrees, kind of a Chinook pattern developing here into western Prince William Sound. Upper 30s for the Panhandle. Warmer up over the northern interior, but still well below zero for the North Slope and the Arctic coastal areas. But you can see pulling above zero even in the Yukon Flats. Fort Yukon probably edge above zero. St. Lawrence Island still a high of about 13 below. Pribilofs right around 20, so the cold air stays out to the west.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather, first graphic here, IFR, Aleutians, western central, up across the Pribilofs, narrow band in there to, looks like right across Cape Newenham, Togiak Bay, northern Bristol Bay, and into the Kuskokwim Valley, and also along the eastern slopes, or so of the, at least the start, it'll be on the eastern slopes of the Alaska Range, then down across Kamishak Bay, Iliamna, and Fognak Island, North Gulf Coast, some areas up the east side of the eastern Arctic coast, mostly IFR for the Panhandle, and then that becomes VFR, southern southeast coast tomorrow afternoon, marginal to the north. Some IFR, Prince William Sound, back down toward Kodiak, southern Cook Inlet, along the Alaska Range and sort of up along that band into the central interior, and then sliding off to the northeast, dissipating western North Slope, marginal otherwise VFR, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, North Slope, Brooks Range, on down into the northern Bering Sea and Nunivak Island to almost St. Matthew. Pribilofs in the IFR from Adak eastward to roughly Cold Bay. And for Saturday morning, IFR up there, southern slopes of the far eastern Alaska Range. Otherwise, not too bad. Some marginal VFR, central and western Arctic coast, right along the coastline. VFR continues here. Chukchi down into the northern Bering, and then from about St. Matthew south, including the Pribilofs, IFR, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, into the valley there of Kuskokwim and Yukon River valleys, and then gets kind of just marginal, some VFR mixed into the central eastern interior, but IFR, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, socked in for Kodiak Island, eastern Aleutians, western Alaska Peninsula, pretty much IFR, but some VFR showing up out over the west central Aleutians, and marginal VFR in areas for the Panhandle becomes IFR for Saturday afternoon. So definitely deteriorating conditions there. And IFR along the Coast Range, northern Cook Inlets, the Sitna-Manuska Valley, probably marginal for the Mat Valley. And north of the range, though, upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, almost back to Tanana, looks VFR, then solid IFR to the west on out to the coast, on up to the northeast, marginal for the North Slope, western and central Arctic coast, central Bering IFR, the Aleutians, not too shabby. And for the passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR tomorrow again, and Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR flying at times IFR. Won't probably be solid the entire day, but there'll be periods of IFR tomorrow for rainy as well. Windy, marginal VFR, possible IFR. I think the IFR will be down toward Cantwell, and then VFR out the north side. And for Isabel, marginal VFR, IFR, possible southern entrance. Ventesta starting out marginal, becoming VFR, or kind of oscillating back and forth. I think the afternoon will be mostly VFR. And for Tanita, marginal VFR. Portage, mostly IFR. Chilkoot and White, improving throughout the day. I think a pretty good chance of going VFR in the afternoon. And for the freezing levels, well south of the state, anything above the surface here, 2,000 feet, they're even south of the Queen Charlottes, although 2,000 feet here up to near or just south of Adak and Atka at the surface here along the coastline. And for icing, heaviest will be down here along the Fox Islands into the Alaska Peninsula. Possible areas of considerable moderate, but about 5,000 feet there of rime icing. and then southerly flow, but not too serious on the icing here. North Gulf Coast, and that band along the Arctic boundary here could be some mixed light stuff, isolated moderate there. And for the jet stream, ridging popping up here, cold upper low, keeping the cold air in over the northern interior there, but the main jet south of the Aleutians diving south of the southeast coast. Southwest flow 25 to 35 knots here, or 20-25, 35 knots back to the west with the upper low there over Kotzebue, and then 50-knot winds for the Alaska Peninsula, and 3,000 feet, much the same pattern. Strongest winds here coming in with this center that's coming up. Weak trough really troughs out. The one coming in tonight really dissipates tomorrow as it moves northeastward. Main low back out through here. Turbulence-wise, pretty smooth. Much of the interior from Kodiak on up to the Arctic coast, Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, those areas, still some enough breeze to keep isolated chop or moderate chop there. And moderate chop more likely Alaska Peninsula and the entire Aleutian chain with light to isolated moderate chop up toward St. Lawrence Island. After the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Like the poet said a long while ago in a galaxy far, far away, that's Snow Moon, and this week, they're right. This week marks the return of the Snow Moon, the name for the February full moon. Native tribes labeled this the Snow Moon to call out the snowiest part of winter, but this magnificent full moon bears other names too, like the Hunter Moon or the Bone Moon. Historically, the weather around now makes hunting difficult, meaning there's less food to go around, i.e. people go hungry or gnaw on bones. Before the full moonrise, you can see a bunch of planets this week too. Grab a snack and look southwest after sunset and you'll see Mercury and Venus forming a line. And between them is Neptune. Amazing. Today, we know both January and February are extremely snowy, so make sure that you appreciate the people who brave the weather to get you your food and keep looking up.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and we have a special guest in the studio today. We welcome Amanda Terborg of the Aviation Weather Center. Thanks for joining us, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Amanda's flown in all the way from Kansas City, and for those of you that don't know, the Aviation Weather Center serves the lower 48 for aviators, just as the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit here in Anchorage serves all of Alaska. So I kind of wonder, what's the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City doing to help out Alaska, Amanda?
Yeah, you know, we do a lot of collaboration work with our sister station up here. Lately, we've been doing a lot of work, especially in the satellite meteorology.
Okay.
In particular, we have been looking at ways to better identify icing conditions in clouds, which is a big deal up here because, as I'm coming to find out, even though I'm not from here, you guys have a lot of pilots here.
We have a lot of pilots. In fact, when you say you can't get there from here, that's how you get there.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so with icing potential then, what's Kansas City working on?
Well, we are working on something that will help us, again, identify the icing in the clouds. You don't want ice on your aircraft.
No.
Not only does it add a whole bunch of extra weight to your airframe when it attaches to the wings and the nose cone, but it can also mess with your aerodynamics.
Right.
And in the most serious conditions, that can mess with it enough that you can actually crash.
It changes the shape of the wing, and that makes it sometimes impossible to fly, right?
It does, yeah. So we want to figure out a way to better forecast for that.
Makes sense.
Now this particular image is over Alaska. The colors here are a little goofy. It doesn't look like your run-of-the-mill satellite image.
Okay.
But the red is where you have liquid clouds and the blue is ice. But again, it really doesn't tell you a lot where you have icing conditions in that cloud. Because in those clouds there's little droplets and they're cold and they're actually below freezing, but they're still liquid. And that makes them sticky.
Okay.
So when an aircraft flies through there, those droplets are sticking to the aircraft and it can happen amazingly fast.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to find. And there is a product called the Aircraft Flight Icing Threat that does this. And it's basically looking at the temperature of the cloud, and it's also looking at the size of the droplets to identify a probability and intensity of those icing conditions.
Okay.
And if you flip to the next image, this is a case from Juneau, Alaska, where this probably wouldn't have been the best day to fly around Juneau.
Okay.
Now there was an area of moisture that pushed south from the southwest up along the coast that pushed in a stratus layer. And in the stratus layer there was a lot of those super cooled liquid drops or a lot of stickiness.
Okay.
And So the flight icing threat was able to, in the pinks and the reds there, was able to identify where that icing was. Now this is really cool. You know, it's really cool to be able to identify that. There is, you know, of course, caveats to every product. Much as we wish it would happen, sun doesn't shine all the time, unless, I guess, if you live in northern Alaska during the summertime.
Right.
But we need that sun to be able to bounce off those clouds and to be able to see where those super cool drops are.
Okay, so it's a daytime only tool.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, of course, you know, we're in the era of advanced satellite technology, and there is a satellite that can actually use moonlight to see clouds.
Yes.
And so sometime in the future, we hope to be able to do that.
Okay.
Another thing that is a bit of a challenge is multiple layers of clouds. You know, you can only see so far through a thick cloud.
Okay.
And if it's thick enough, sometimes you can't see a layer of icing that's below there.
Right.
But even besides those caveats, this product has a lot of potential to help out Alaskan aviators here.
Well, it sounds like a really big deal, and something that forecasters at the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit could use probably on a daily basis, and especially in the middle of a really big storm.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do you have a really good success story in the lower 48 using this tool?
You know, it's a fairly new product, and so we're still evaluating it. But yeah, we've had a lot of cases where we have seen that it does tend to capture those icing conditions.
Okay, very good. Well, Amanda, thanks so much for sharing some of the very interesting satellite imagery and the tools that you're using there at the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City with us here in Alaska. People can probably find some of this information online, right?
Yeah, here is a website here. It's a page from NASA Langley, and they have this imagery as well as a bunch of other satellite imagery that you can take a look at.
Okay, great. And I'm sure our friends at the Alaska Aviation Weather Center and the unit will be using that in the coming months there with your training and your help there to learn more about that tool to help Alaska aviators any day of the year. That's wonderful stuff. So thanks again for joining us, Amanda, and we welcome you to view any of our Alaska weather facts on YouTube anytime at the address below, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Bulge here to the south and southwest, right through there. Yesterday was more of a straight line across there, and that due to the strong northerly winds and the cold temperatures that are pushing southward currently. And that'll continue probably for the next couple of days into Sunday, begin to let up a little bit, but still expect to advance probably by late Sunday southward, maybe up to 40 more nautical miles, but by Sunday night and into the first of next week, big pattern change, big storm expected to push up into initially the western Bering, probably late Sunday night, and definitely by Monday here, the area of the ice edge, especially along the ice edge, will feel the effects of the south and southeast winds, and that'll put the end to any further southward progression. And for the coast here, for the Panhandle, not bad tomorrow. South coast north to northwest, 10 to 15 knots, and kind of variable 15 up to the north. Central northern inside waters, light northerlies, 10 knots tomorrow, seas slight, and 15 knots are Clarence Strait. And then for Saturday, southeast 20, gale force gusts for Stevens Passage, and gale force gusts also out of the south for Lynn Canal, but Stevens Passage staying light out of the northwest. And the south coast here, west-southwest 20-25 knots, turn southerly as you go up the coastline at 25 knots, and then gales out of the southeast for the north coast, seas building to 13 feet. Prince William Sound tomorrow, east 20 knots. Light winds for the eastern North Gulf Coast, about 20 out of the southeast here for the west side, and then small craft advisories for the Barren Islands, east 25, Kamishak Bay, northeast 25 for small craft advisory, southern Cook Inlet, and then big increase in the winds over Cook Inlet. And Saturday, southerlies, 45 knots sustained, just under storm force, but Kamishak Bay will be see storm force winds out of the south at 50 knots, and southwest 45 for the Barren Islands. Gales out of the southwest for the North Gulf Coast, 35 to 40 knots, seas building to around 20 feet. Prince William Sound, gales south 35, seas building to 7 feet. Kodiak Island tomorrow, south-southwest 15 to 20, and then 30-knot winds that connect the Castle Cape, east-southeast, 30 knots for the Alaska Peninsula. Light winds, the calm before the storm for Bristol Bay. Storm warnings for Bristol Bay on Saturday, south 50 knots and southwest 55 to 60 knots here for the Alaska Peninsula. That'll be down from the hurricane force wind warnings, sustained 65 knots expected Friday night. Storm warnings for most of Kodiak Island, except on the east side of the islands there, southwest 45. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow, 40-knot winds from either the northeast, east, or southeast. Seas running 13 to 17 feet. East-northeast, 35 to 40 knots there for the central Aleutians. And easterlies, 30 to 40 knots. Strongest there, Kiska on out to Shemya. And for Saturday, 30-40 knot winds continue here for the western Aleutians. And kind of a variable pattern here for the central areas. Bering Sea side of the islands, northeast 25, Pacific side southwest 40. And then 35 to 55 knot winds from varying directions for the Fox Islands, with seas 38 to 44 feet there on the Pacific side of the islands. And for the southwest coast, northeast 30 knots tomorrow. Brisk wind advisories there, north 20 for St. Lawrence Island, 40 knots out of the northeast for the Pribilofs. And then for Saturday, north 45 knots for the Pribilofs. Storm warnings, Kuskokwim Delta coast, northwest 50 knots, north 45 knots, Yukon Delta coast, 30 knots St. Lawrence Island, and north sustained 40 for St. Matthew Island. Moving to the eastern Boulevard Sea coast, light westerlies tomorrow at about 10 knots, north 10 for the central coast, and northeast at 10 on the west side. Cape Beaufort to Wales, north at 15. That'll increase almost double on Saturday to 30, or will double 30 knots from the north to northeast, from Wales to Cape Lisburne. For brisk wind advisories there, come up about 20 knots in the northeast, but staying light and kind of variable at 10 for the central and east coast. For tonight again, system weakening as it moves northeastward here. Trough bringing some moisture into the southwest from Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, North Gulf Coast. Still some light snow here along that Arctic boundary, but in the diminishing area. And this weakening front pushes into the Aleutians, kind of elongates eastward. And some lingering rain or snow showers linger here for the northern panhandle. And then look for a partly to mostly sunny day, hopefully, tomorrow for the southeast coast. And still a chance of moisture with a trough over the Gulf of Alaska into the North Gulf Coast, and cloudy and snow showery light on the east side. Big storm rolls up for wind and rain the next day for the southwest coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.